If you want to reverse a dead bedroom in your lesbian relationship, you need to understand how your nervous system is driving your arousal patterns. And once you understand this, even at a basic level, you'll know how to create sexual connection that feels passionate and safe, no matter how long you've been with your partner. So today we're going to talk about why a dead bedroom is not a problem, but it's a signal of overwhelm in your nervous system, and how you can respond to that signal in ways that create more desire and arousal naturally without pushing through or performing. By the way, my name is Danny. I am a somatic sexologist and body worker, specifically working with lesbians and within the sapphic community to guide folks to having a happier relationship with their bodies and their sexuality after trauma. So before we get into the least understood cause of quote-unquote lesbian bed death, I of course need to say that the term lesbian bed death came out of a study in the 80s that wasn't well created, and that just because you are in a lesbian relationship does not mean that bed death has to happen or is inevitable. And 99.9% of couples of any orientation, of any gender, struggle with maintaining passionate desire in a long-term relationship because we're just not given the information and the skills. So I'm going to be using the term dead bedroom in this video just to normalize the fact that this can happen to any relationship, not just lesbians. Also, in this video, I am specifically talking to folks who have experienced their desire and arousal at one point and currently feel like they can't access it for one reason or another. With all that out of the way, let's get into what most lesbians think the problem is behind their dead bedroom, which is low libido. When at least one person in a relationship is experiencing what they call low libido, it can cause the mind of everyone in the relationship to go haywire, thinking things like, are we just not sexually compatible? Are they not into me anymore? Is there something wrong with my body? And maybe you've even done some late night researching and have fallen down some Reddit rabbit holes about lesbian bed death and desire, and you've come across a term that Emily Nagoski's book Come As You Are has popularized called responsive desire, meaning that some folks' desire can take longer to get going depending on the context. And so maybe you've had a lot of light bulb moments around this, and even with all this information and effort, it still flops. You've created plans with your partner to maybe try to get more turned on with your partner, do activities together, kind of slow down together. You're trying to make it easier to feel more sexually connected, but it ends up just feeling scripted and stiff and forced. So you both just end up next to each other on the couch watching Love Island while also scrolling TikTok next to each other. And after a while of this feeling of like a swing and a miss, you may start feeling an aversion to sex altogether, or start pushing through the resistance so that you can be a good partner or save the relationship, and saying yes to sex that you really don't want to have. There's this feeling of like an insurmountable problem and nothing that you've tried is working. So it ends up feeling like you're in a stalemate. And this exact situation is so common. I often find that folks are shocked because they think it's just them. And this is exactly why understanding trauma in the nervous system is so huge, because experiencing low libido because you've just been a little busy and aren't feeling super connected to your partner in that moment, versus not experiencing your desire because your nervous system is overwhelmed, are two completely different things. So what I see in folks that come to me is that what they're calling low libido is often a symptom of an overwhelmed nervous system. So if you're focused on fixing your low libido with routines and communication and supplements, you're actually just working at the surface level, and understanding what's going on in your nervous system is like looking under the hood to get to the deeper root cause. So maintaining or recreating a passionate, connected sex life is not about communicating better or scheduling sex or going on a date night, though these things may help a little. But it's actually about understanding why desire and arousal are feeling overwhelming to your nervous system and leading to a freeze response or a shutdown, and how to repattern those responses without force or overriding your body. Let's break down how trauma impacts your body's response to arousal and desire. As someone who specializes in sexual and religious trauma, I'm super geeked about this, but don't worry, this is science-based, but it's still digestible. So no matter your interest level or your knowledge about the nervous system. I'll offer real world ways that this information matters. So when you have experienced trauma, whether that was a direct experience of your boundaries being crossed or the trauma of consistent shaming and policing and the imposition of rules on your body, or fear-mongering of going to hell, your nervous system learned to associate the feeling of arousal and desire with fear. For very good reason. Fear has a physical response. It's not just a feeling that we have in our mind, but it creates tension and bracing and tightening. You've probably noticed that when you feel anxious or stressed or scared or nervous about something, your shoulders get really tense up to your ears. Maybe your stomach feels clenched. Maybe your breath, like it feels like you can't breathe in your chest. All these are physical manifestations of a highly stressful situation. So when desire and arousal and your body has historically been something to fear, it's been a threat to your safety, your acceptance, your survival, your body has been conditioned through experiences over and over and over again that those things are scary and will lead to pain, whether emotional or physical. How this could look in your day-to-day life is you may feel a ping of arousal or desire, and your body experiences that jolt of fear. And so your nervous system comes in, shuts down the arousal. And then maybe you feel another ping, but then it feels shut down again. So it can feel like this internal tug of war where your arousal feels confusing and erratic and it can really fuck with your head. And this is exactly what I experienced. I would be on the couch, maybe reading a book, and I would feel a ping of arousal. And I would text a big game and say I can't wait. I'm going to do all these things, la, 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 right? But then when she would come over, my body literally felt frozen and I couldn't access my desire. But I already said all this stuff and she's already here. So naturally, I would default to performing in sex. And also I relied heavily on alcohol to try to manage that frozenness. And this went on for years because I didn't understand what my body was doing. And it wasn't until I started studying trauma and sexuality and the nervous system that I began to understand that I wasn't crazy. My nervous system felt relatively safe to experience arousal when I was alone on my couch. But the minute that it involved someone else, their expectations, their feelings, their thoughts, that was completely overwhelming. And all my negative experiences and conditioning around sex and shame and queerness got all stirred up. And although this was really frustrating, once I understood what my body was doing, it not only helped me feel less insane, but it helped me understand how to change this outdated response that I had from so much conditioning that my own sexual arousal with another person was dangerous. If you are currently struggling with a dead bedroom and you have had experiences of trauma and shame and conditioning around your body and sexuality, like most people on this planet, unfortunately, you need new experiences of arousal that are not overwhelming, but that encourage the growth of new neural pathways in your brain and your nervous system. And this has to be done gently. Trust me, I am a very let me just push through and get it done type of person too, but that does not work with repatterning the nervous system. Because if you are experiencing that shutdown or that frozenness in your body and you try to push through that, you're reinforcing the pattern in your body that sex equals tolerating, sex equals being uncomfortable and pain and enduring. And that's not something that you want to carry forward with you if you're watching this video. And on the other hand, if you avoid the erotic altogether and you just talk about your past and how sex is hard for you, you're not giving your system new experiences to learn from. So this repatterning is a delicate process, and it has to start with a foundational connection to your own body. And that's why my first step in working with clients is always developing what I call body trust. And I'm going to show you how you can do that too. And no, this doesn't mean that you need to be stuck in your own head, constantly monitoring your body to where you lose the connection with the person in front of you. Because with practice, body trust becomes second nature. So you're able to connect with yourself and also with your partner at the same time. It's not an either or. Imagine that your partner puts her hand on your thigh, and instead of shutting down and bracing or immediately making a comment about how you have to do the dishes to break that sexual tension that you're feeling uncomfortable with, instead of all that, you melt into her touch, you lean into it, and you're able to savor it and get lost in the warmth of her hand. And you allow the sexual tension to build between you two, and you are able to be 100% present, enjoying the moment without worrying about what it might lead to and stressing yourself out. This is what happens when you're able to build that body trust within yourself so that you can go from shut down or frozen to sensual and safe within your own body, and then feel more excited to connect with someone sexually. So let's break down the 3 steps of body trust. Number 1 is honoring your resistance. Now, I know that can sound vague or fluffy or meaningless words that a wellness influencer threw up on an Instagram ad, but I want to get specific with this. When you try to push through your shutdown or your freeze, it just pushes you deeper into your survival mode. Because that resistance to sexual connection is intelligent. The body does not do anything for no reason. And so when I say honoring the resistance, what I'm talking about is dignifying it, acknowledging that there is a reason behind it, instead of seeing your resistance as this inconvenient thing that you just need to smash through and get on with it. Because when you view your resistance with that dignity and that honor, you're communicating to your body that it is not wrong and that you want to understand why it's happening. And this is really countercultural in the no pain, no gain culture. But without this step, you're just going to spin your wheels and continue to feel like you're battling with your body. So the next step in creating body trust is tuning the signal. So you can think of the dial on a radio. So let's say the radio station is 93.7, where you listen to all your favorite music. If you have it on 93.4 or 93.9, it's going to be staticky and really hard to hear. And you may even be picking up other signals that further muddle the sound of the station that you're trying to listen to. And your body's signals are the same way. You want to tune in to what your body is communicating. On the most basic level, this means tuning in to when your body is saying yes to something, when it's saying no, when it's a maybe. This might sound simple, but it is not easy, because there are a lot of social conditioning and experiences and patterns of people pleasing that can make it difficult to really tune in, get that clear signal from your body. So when you can really tune in, this is how you start identifying what things about your sex life are not feeling safe and comfortable for you, and as well as identifying things that your body is asking for more of. The final step is pacing. Not always, but a lot of the time, folks realize that the pace of their sexual escalation is moving way too fast for what their body and nervous system is able to stay present with. Because especially in the movies, everyone's always like ripping their clothes off, banging into stuff, breaking lamps. Like, it's so fast and ramped up. And that's not wrong, of course. But when your nervous system is easily overwhelmed with desire and arousal, often what's needed is to slow down the pace so that you can feel when you're feeling in it and when you start to check out or shut down. Because as soon as you notice that you're starting to leave the situation mentally, that's a sign for you to stop and change what's happening. That in itself is repatterning your nervous system, because you're saying, I'm not going to keep enduring. I'm not going to keep going when something's not working for me. That is something only you can figure out because there's no right pace. And although body trust is the foundation, it is just one phase of my feral connection method because safety in your own body is only the starting point. At that point, you still haven't repatterned your nervous system to allow and receive pleasure. So after you create a solid foundation of body trust, which helps you move from performing what you think sex should be to what your body truly is asking for, then we can map out what I call your pleasure profile. What brings you pleasure, what you're into, what you like. But again, this is where understanding trauma in the nervous system is crucial. Because if your nervous system is easily overwhelmed with desire and arousal, and you jump into being like, okay, what are my desires? What are my kinks? What turns me on? That's likely going to feel really overwhelming. You want to start exploring pleasure by allowing yourself to enjoy micro experiences of pleasure and desire that are not overwhelming, and looking for those tiny moments in your daily life outside of a sexual context to build your nervous system's capacity to feel pleasure in general. And finally, coming back from a dead bedroom has to include how you communicate your needs and desires to your partner. Because once you're able to find that just right pace that allows you to feel safe and connected sexually, what happens when that shifts? Intimacy is not static, it's dynamic. So when something that felt good starts to feel less good, or something that you thought you wanted turns out not to be what you wanted, when you're getting signals from your body that the pace or the position or the dynamic isn't working for you in that moment, are you able to share that with your partner instead of continuing to endure it because it's already started? And not only that, but are you able to share it with them in a way that encourages connection and openness, and in a way that even allows the erotic connection in the moment to stay intact while also voicing your needs for something else? Or if you're able to share at all, is it in a way that's critical or sheepish and not really clear about what you want? So this delicate dance of expression is what I call expansive communication. And it's about developing communication skills that actually hold up in erotic context, right? In emotionally charged context. So you don't have to keep rehearsing a conversation about your desires or your sex life 43 times in your head and trying to find the exact right moment to bring it up to your partner. Instead, you're able to confidently and clearly express your needs in the moment in a way that feels natural. All these frameworks are important because they play off of each other. You won't be able to register those micro moments of pleasure in your daily life if you are not connected to your body and its signals. And the ability to receive pleasure itself is not enough to sustain passion long term, because you want to be able to communicate and offer feedback and adjustments over the days, months, years, decades that you're with someone to keep the sexual connection interesting and passionate and feeling good for you and your partner. This more holistic, trauma-informed approach to healing and sexuality is what I call the feral connection method. If you're ready to explore your sexual self beyond the pain and shame of the past and curious about what a fulfilling sex life could look like for you on your own terms, you can book a connection call with me below, and we'll talk about how the feral connection method can be applied to your relationship so that you can sustain passion over the long term. But if you're curious to learn more about my approach to sexual healing and dissociation and shutdown, I created a free present sex roadmap that I've linked below.